The game in the background of this video is an idle game called Remaya Idle. You can pick up this game on Steam for about $3, but luckily since I have a history of idle games on my channel, I was able to get a key from the developers for free. While yes, this game is not Clicker Heroes, it does have some relevance to the discussion, which we'll go over later. And the actual discussion is, how much would you pay for an idle game? Is $3 too much? How about $30? About a week ago, the developers of Clicker Heroes and Clicker Heroes 2 posted on the Incremental Games subreddit a small write-up about why Clicker Heroes 2 is abandoning free-to-play. It's an interesting read, and it's interesting to go through all of the various comments on this page and see what their reasoning is and how people are reacting to it. I'll go over a high level of why they're doing it, and then we can talk about it. So first off, they dropped this little bombshell of news, saying not only did they choose a pay upfront model compared to the microtransaction model that they have in their first title, which is free-to-play, they chose a paid upfront model, but it's not like $5, it's not $10, it's not $3, it's $30. This is twice the price of Hollow Knight, for example, and, you could probably compare all sorts of other games to this. I'm not going to go through a list of all games that are $30 that I found very worthwhile, but this is going to be a clicker game, an idle game, an incremental game that you're going to have to pay $30 for. This is weird. This is very, very weird. Now, here's the thing. I'm not against idle games charging for their development time, because it's either you charge up front or you do a microtransaction model where you sell some other secondary currency like Clicker Heroes does with its gems. This whole genre is pretty weird though. The whole thing is built off of the free-to-play model. There's hundreds and hundreds of different idle games for you to play, for you to choose to get into, for you to explore, and they're all free. Sure, some of them have microtransaction models, and some of them are more annoying or more required than others. But you know what? You just find those that have a model that you can work with, where if you don't want to pay, and the game is kind of making you pay if you want to make any meaningful progress, that's a game that you stay away from. Clicker Heroes was a pretty good example of something that you could pay for, but you could get along just fine without putting any money into it. Same thing goes for Realm Grinder. Historically, and I'm using that word pretty lightly because this genre isn't very old, historically these games have been free. And for good reason. There's not really a whole lot of gameplay involved in them. Sure, they're huge time wasters and they're something that a lot of people enjoy, but it feels weird to sink money into a genre like this. Especially with how many there are, and how simple it is, and how, dare I say, unengaging it can be. And there's like a dozen new kinds of these there's like a dozen new idle games coming out every single day. And most of them are pretty bad, but some of them are pretty good and are going to keep your attention for a while, and you're never going to have to pay a cent to play it. Anyway, I just realized that I said I was going to go over the reasons, at least briefly, about why they chose to abandon free-to-play, and then I just went on a little rant. At the top of their list of reasons is ethical reasons, saying that games are inherently addictive. In Clicker Heroes 1, they say that they never tried to abuse players with their shop, which I can agree based on, my time with the game. I don't feel like I was ever forced to spend money on the game. But they say that despite this fact, they found that some number of players spent many thousands of dollars on their currency in the game. That's insane. And they go on to say, I can only hope that these people could afford it and that they were doing it to support us and not to feed an addiction, but I strongly suspect that this is not the case. Like I said, this whole thing is worth a read. I'm not going to read this whole thing out to you. But overall, they say that they felt kind of dirty about that. Imagine spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a game like Clicker Heroes. Sure, the game is addicting, and the whole Skinner box idea of idle games and incremental games is supposed to make you feel good by making you feel like you made progress, and yes, they're inherently addicting in that way. And for some people, that can become a problem. But what you never know is whether these people who are spending this much money on games can actually afford it. Is this just like pocket change to them? Or are they actually addicted to this game and they have to just keep sinking more and more money into it to see their numbers climb higher and higher? Unless you talk to that person, you never know. It's kind of a weird situation to be in as a developer, because you see that money coming in and you're like, yeah, this is gonna help me out. But again, you don't know whether they're legitimately wanting to support you or if it's because they're addicted and they're like putting themselves out. And the developers they're just not okay with that. They're not okay with the idea of whales, and they're not okay with the idea of making potential victims out of people. And I can't say that I disagree with them. I mean, certainly I'd feel dirty about it too. It's a weird line to toe, and I, for one, at least respect these guys for going out on a limb and trying to change things up. After all, Clicker Heroes 1 absolutely has an audience to pull a lot of buyers in for Clicker Heroes 2, regardless of how much it costs. I know I, for one, am going to be buying the game if they don't outright send me a key. I hope they do, but you know, I'll be buying it if they don't. And that's because I loved Clicker Heroes 1. I spent a lot of time with it. I've gotten some friends and coworkers to spend a lot of time with it, and it was just all around a fun little way to waste some time and just, you know, not be doing what I should be. I didn't know how to finish that sentence. Their second big reason is game design reasons. And it's pretty obvious that a microtransaction model, even in a way that Clicker Heroes and Realm Grinder do it, and these are games that actually do this well, in my opinion, without being abusive, the fact that they're there definitely affects the game. It affects the progression, it affects the speed, it affects your engagement with the game. And that's one thing that you're never really sure of when you go into a free-to-play game, because when you go into a free-to-play game, more often than not, they're gonna have some sort of way to monetize the game. Sometimes it's ads, but most of the time these days it's going to be microtransactions. And that's okay because, you know, people need to eat, and these people who are making these games need to make money. After all, they're taking their time to create this thing for you to enjoy. And in my opinion, they should get at least something for that, you know? That's why I monetize my content here on YouTube, subscribe to YouTube Red, and support some other people on Patreon. They even cite this in their reasons. They talk about this persistent nagging feeling of, my game could be so much better if I just spent a few dollars. And they also say that that alone feels terrible. However, something weird that they say in this game design reasons block is that new updates can change the game to be incompatible with old saves, which will be rare, maybe once or twice a year, and there will be plenty of advance warning when it happens. They should do their absolute best to not have this happen. Ever. I know it's an idle game. I know it's an incremental game. I know it's a clicker game. You shouldn't be resetting people's progress, especially if you're charging $30 up front. They say that you'll have the option to play the old version or start fresh on the new version, but why? How? I don't have any experience in designing or maintaining a game like this, but I have to wonder what their reasoning for this is. Or like why they couldn't just create a system that wouldn't be destroyed by new updates. Because one of the main draws of an idle game is to play it over a long period of time. I know I only usually stick around for a month, maybe 2, maybe 3 before I eventually get bored and go away. But I can imagine there are some folks who stick around on one game for a very, very long time until they, I guess, have everything? I don't know. While I really enjoyed this genre, I'm not like as into it as I could be, I guess. Now, $30 is a lot of money for a game like this, especially given that the market is almost completely free to play. However, they seem to be confident, and so do users who are heavily invested in the development of Clicker Heroes 2 and know a lot more about the game than I do. They all seem to be confident that Clicker Heroes 2 is going to have plenty of content to make it worth the $30. I will reserve my judgment, and I don't really feel like going out to look up everything that the game is going to have to offer, but I'm curious. I'd like to see what's going to happen, and I'm very much looking forward to the game. Now, the reason that I'm showing you this game in the background, Remaya Idle, is because, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this game costs $3. This is a brand new idle game from an unknown company, and instead of doing microtransactions or an ad-supported model, what they're doing is charging money up front. similar to what Clicker Heroes has done, but for a much smaller fee, 10% of the fee to be exact. But here's the thing, the game's not very good. Like I said, I play a lot of incremental games. I probably play more than I should, and I actually have one going right now as I speak. There's a lot of good ones that I can't get into. There's a lot of bad ones that I've gotten too much into, and there's just a lot. And with so many to choose from, why would you choose to pay $3 for one? I guess the initial thought is perhaps that because they're charging for it, maybe they have a lot of content. Maybe there's a lot to do in it. Maybe it's very deep. Maybe it's more deep than I would expect. Maybe there's a lot more features that they're actually hiding from the Steam store page. You kind of have that initial thought. But unfortunately, this game it's not good. It's full of unfinished ideas that weren't really thought out. There's some CPU issues. The monsters are nothing but a bunch of weird flying target boards. It's not very creative at all. You have the hero character being strangely blurry compared to the background. You have a frustratingly RNG-dependent source of loot generation. And when I first got my hands on the game before it was released, it didn't even have the progression system that you probably saw flash in the background. The prestige system. So without that, all you had was just infinitely drinking potions and doing rerolls and changing your equipment, and it's not very good. It reeks of an idea that somebody had, that somebody created, and then they didn't throw out the things that didn't work. And there's a lot here that doesn't work. It's like they just went with the first ideas that they had. But the reason this is relevant is because it's bad. It would be relevant if it was good too, but relevant in a different way. However, I think it being bad illustrates the point a little better, that it's hard to trust an idle game. And because they're generally free, they're easy to try. They're easy to see if it's something that you would enjoy, a type of idle game that you would enjoy. And if you don't like it, no skin off your back, just go play something else. It was free. Maybe you just wasted a little time, but you were looking to waste time anyway, so what's the big deal? You're just a little frustrated because you were looking for a good one and that wasn't it. But when you're asking for $3, when you're looking to pay $3 for an idle game, you're going to be expecting a hell of a lot more. And unfortunately, this game does not give that. And I think a lot of people who have issues with Clicker Heroes 2's pricing model, especially how high it is that idea. Is it going to be worth the $30? I don't know. Most people don't know. But what I do know is that the community is pretty divided over this $30 pricing point. And I am very interested to see how this goes for them. And with all that said, I want to bring this back all the way to the question that I asked at the beginning of the video. How much would you pay for an idle game? I'm also kind of curious to know if you've ever bought any in-app purchases for an idle game, and how much you've spent. And while it's true that the in-app purchases are something that you engage in after you know that you enjoy it, whereas the upfront model asks you to trust them, I think it'd still be interesting to compare these numbers. Anyway, please leave your answers and your thoughts in the comment section below. And thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you disliked the video, hit that dislike button. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at ingeniousclown and hit that subscribe button for more awesome gaming content here in the future. And I will see you next time.